All right, y'all, we're back on the DM7. Today we're going to talk about using SuperRack with the DM7. And Waves SuperRack is a program that I can use Waves plugins on, and they've updated it to where I can use any VST plugins on it, which is amazing because we'll set up using Valhalla Reverb on a live setting, which is incredible. So this is going to be taking in consideration on SuperRack Performer. So this is just needing a computer connected to your DM7, not a Wave server or anything else like that. There are some considerations we have with that, like latency and reliability. I don't want to be processing everything on Waves because I just don't want a risk of my computer crashing or having any sort of clicks or dropouts in my audio. And the more I do, the more latency it creates. So in this scenario, I'm just going to be doing my vocal mics and some effects processing, and I'll show you how to set that up here. So in the DM7, we're going to go to our vocal mics, and I want to route these all to SuperRack. So how do I do that? I'm going to go here, up here on this line of things here. If you can't see it, you might be looking at this. Just press the home button again, press this B blank. And in my previous videos, we talked about this primary source enhancer. That's going to be first, and that's going to help my signal just be clean and gated into SuperRack. So then in here, I'm going to go to outboard on this list here, outboard, boom. And then it'll pull this up here. Now I have to patch out of the board and back into the board. I always like to make things one-to-one. So I want, if I'm going output one, I want it to be input one. So in this case, I'm connected to the DM7 via USB. Could be Dante. I could be getting into it with Dante. That's fine too. But in this case, we're going to do USB. So I'm going to go output. I'm going to go USB. This is mic 1. So let's just make it USB 1. Easy. And my input, I'm going to make USB 1. So now the round trip is happening here. Now, you have to verify that this is on because you need this to be on for audio to be going there. If it's off, you're bypassing all of these. So nothing is happening. So on, you'll see that indicated up here. You can see them kind of go gray. And if I'm on this screen, you still have this here, but you just want to make sure that's on for it to be going. And now I've got it. So on my mic 2, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go outboard. We're going to call this USB 2. I'll go USB 2. And then 3. Outboard. USB 3. USB 3. And 4. Outboard. And so on and so forth. You get it. We got 8 mics, but I'm just going to do that. And now my round trip is happening. Now let's go to my outputs. So I have reverbs happening here. Let's see where they're at. Where do we put them? Yeah, at the end here. So let's say I want to change this verb 1, and I want this to be my reverb. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to put an outboard, and I'm going to put this at the end here. 17. And this is 17. And then on the second channel, I'm going to go 18. And put this one on 18. You have to do them separately on your stereo channel. So odd is always left, even's always right. That's how we always set it up. I make sure this is on. And now reverb is happening here. And I need to make sure that I'm not still using my effect here. So I want to go up to my rack. I want to go to effects. This is verb 1. So we're looking for verb 1 right here. So this, I'm just going to clear this patch. Okay. Okay. Clear patch. Clear patch. And now this effects engine is no longer on my send here. So now this is just processing this, and we're still outputting to channel 71. So everything is still happening with my routing here. I'm just now going outside of the DM7 to have a reverb. So now let's jump into SuperRack. So here's SuperRack. A couple things we want to go over here. We're going to go over to setup, and on this audio device. Now I'm on an offline editor right now, so it's not going to say DM7, but in your live scenario, your device you want to set to DM7. So I have it set to my interface, which is a Lynx Hilo, but it's going to say Yamaha DM7. Just bear that in mind. I like to keep my buffer size 256 or lower. 256 has been fine. Latency-wise, it's better, and I have enough processing power with that buffer size that I'm not having dropouts, but it's not making my latency go way up. The higher I go with this number, the higher my latency is going to go. And another thing important is now what I'm also doing with this, I'm going to be able to tune my vocals live, and which is a game changer, and it's awesome. But you got to bear in mind, the round trip creates latency. Even though we're going to be using latency-free plugins, just the round trip alone has latency. So that's why we set up their ears, gave them a separate channel, so that when they're in their ears, they're not monitoring something that has latency. They're monitoring something that's straight off the board that's causing no latency. And that is not going out to the front of house. What's going out of the front of house is a separate channel that we're processing here. So this way there's no latency in their ears. They're never going to complain about it. They'll never even hear it. And it's great. So that's good here. Under my settings, I'm just going to do 8 racks. I don't want all of these racks that I'm going to be having to turn off anyways. Again, I'm just trying to keep everything clean and reliable and usable. So I've got 8 racks selected here. Everything else is good for now. I'm going to go now to this overview, and it looks like this. Okay, so on this, we went 1-to-1. So we're going to do the same thing in SuperRack. So mic 1 is going to be input 1. And here it'll say Yamaha DM7, and you'll go USB 1. Again, I'm just going round trip here. And it automatically does it here, 1-to-1. And you'll see my vocal is what the signal is happening here. And then 2, I'll go 2. I'm going to go 3. I'm going to go 4. I'm going to now title all these. So that's mic 1. This is mic 2. Mic 3. Mic 4. Mic 5. Mic 6. And then I'm going to call this my verb 1. Cool. Now on the verb, this is a stereo. So I'm going to go to stereo, and I'm going to make this 7/8 just like it was in there, and there we go. So now what I can do is I can put plugins on here. So plugin list, and reverb. Let's go H reverb. Perfect. And then I can do all my settings in here, and I have reverb going on, and it's going to be coming back into the board. And it's great. This is where I'm processing it. So any sort of editing I want to do to the sound of the reverb is going to be in here now. And then let's say on my vocal, some good stuff is, I like this 1176 is great. I can set it to Blackie. I can do something like this. I just think the compressors just sound so much better than what's on the board. So I definitely want to use some compression. I'll use some EQ. It's great. Let's talk about when I do this here, you'll see, so on this here, you'll see this latency right here, 0. This is preferred. Now I can use stuff, especially on my FX. I don't care if my latency starts climbing. Let's call it a pre-delay. But this latency right here on my vocals, I have to be aware that if this starts going up, I'm going to have a bigger delay. So I like to use plugins that don't cause any latency. So as you can see, I have this plugin on here. There's no latency. And then let's say I want to put tuning on here. So I'll go plugin list. We'll go pitch shift, waves tune, real time. And then check this out. This also has no latency. No latency. Boom. So then I can just set this to major and whatever key my song is in. And we'll go over in another video how to set up scenes so that you can change keys as you go throughout. That's just a little more advanced, but I can now have tuning on my vocal, and I still have 0 latency, and I've got this round trip going on. And then I'll want to save this. I like to save just as like I do anything else, just like a scene. This is my scene, and then snapshots are how I would like change keys and stuff like that. But this now is saved, so every time I open it up. Now, when this is on, you got to be aware. Here's something else you'll run into, is if SuperRack is, when you pull up your board, turn your board on, and somebody's talking into the mic, and SuperRack is not open, the signal is stopping. So you will no longer get signal on your mics unless SuperRack is open. Now I could get signal back by turning this off, and then signal will be routed again, and you're good to go. But if this is on, SuperRack has to be on for you to be getting signal. So that's a good the good thing to be aware of when you're starting to use SuperRack. That SuperRack now has to be open for a signal to pass, or I can just mute it here. So now my signal chain is going into this primary source enhancer, into my SuperRack, and back, and then I can use this for like frequency cuts or additional EQ, and then I have more EQ here, which is, it's great. Even in SuperRack, I can use a de-esser and in there, and you get however creative you want to be with your signal chain, but it makes it to where, especially me as a studio guy, it makes it to where I can start using tools that are more familiar to me in my studio setting, in a live setting, and it's been super reliable, especially with a good computer. You know, we're using the silicon chip computer, not even a M4 Pro. I think it's an M2 that we're using at front of house at Zeal. So it's worked. It's never failed us. And I love it because these tools sound so good. I mean, it's the tools I use when I'm working on records. So I love it. And that's how you set it up with the DM7. Let me know if you have any questions.